Welcome to Halo Talk, I'm Corvus. 343 and Halo are both in very weird positions, both as a gaming company, as a game producer, and a game franchise, that I think we need to look at and take into account when we're projecting how well Halo 5 is going to do in the esports scene. So first you take 343, they're at kind of a make or break point. They have all this pressure surrounding them. They have both like hype on one side and pressure on another, to where it's just coming in and pushing from both ways, and now 343 is in a position where they have to succeed, because they have to help the fans that are saying like, oh, we love Halo, we want it to do well, and shut up the naysayers who are saying like Halo's dead and whatever, it's not going to come back. So 343, this is going to make or break them. The launch of Halo 5 is literally going to be, their life depends on it at this point. They're not going to come away from a bad launch again if they have something repeating with the Master Chief Collection. Like, that is the end for 343. I don't care how much Microsoft supports them right now. If no one's buying their game, Microsoft's going to retract that support, and Halo will not succeed as an esport. Halo itself now is in a pretty weird position as well, just because we don't really see many esports come back from bad launches. So we see, like, there's obviously a natural waxing and waning to, like, esports popularity, like, between the release of titles, like, the first installment comes out here and then slowly drops, but then the hype comes back up again with the second installment. Like, that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about just the natural decay of interest that kind of comes back in and out with the release of new titles. I'm talking about coming back after a bad launch, after a failed competitive game, and that's not something that we've really seen in esports before. That's pretty damn unprecedented. So for Halo to come around after Reach and 4, which were both kind of competitive failures, like, I'm not talking about just where they were as games, it's just from the competitive scene, like, the viewers were declining, the money was drying up in there, and they were not competitive successes for the Halo franchise, especially contrast to Halo 2 and Halo 3, which were kind of the golden age of that. Now we're seeing Halo actually start to pull back around, and a revitalization of this competitive scene, which is not something that we're very familiar with as esports. Like, even with just the Master Chief Collection coming out, 343 is bringing something back from the dead, and it's going to be very interesting to see now how that plays out with Halo 5, especially because of, like, the launch troubles that the Master Chief Collection endured. But it's putting, like I said, both of these entities, both 343 and Halo, which we got to look at separately here, in very, very interesting positions that we need to take a look at. So, like, the biggest thing we need to examine here is the disadvantages and the advantages that both these companies, the game and the company, are in. So we'll start with just the disadvantages that they're facing, the adversity that they have to overcome. One of the bigger indicators right now is that console esports are still really, really far behind PC esports. Things like Twitch viewership is in the dumpster for competitive shooters compared to something like League of Legends or Hearthstone, which isn't even a fucking esport. There's just, like, a lot of money and viewership circulating in Hearthstone. Counter-Strike and Dota both drawing absolutely massive numbers of viewerships and tons of money through their esports scene. Those are all PC esports that are kind of killing it right now. And then, like, the next big console esport is Destiny, which, again, isn't even an esport. It doesn't have a competitive scene. It literally can't be competitive with the infrastructure that it has now. They don't have a theater mode, or they don't have custom games, so, like, you can't have a competitive scene in Destiny. But it's still, like, the next console shooter in terms of just, like, hype and what people are wanting to watch. So, like, if you look at the Twitch numbers, Destiny's sitting at 33,000 here on a Thursday night, which is, again, they've just released the Taken King, so, like, that's obviously going to fall off as the hype surrounding that dies, but that's still indicative of, like, 33,000 people who would rather watch a non-competitive game on a console than something on a PC game or something like League or Counter-Strike or whatever. So it's not to say that these numbers can't be taken, but they're definitely lower than that of the PC platform. And Halo's still not drawing them. So hopefully with Halo 5 a lot of that will resurface, but right now there's no real indicator to say that it's going to, besides that there's just some people out there that like to watch non-competitive games like Destiny. They would rather watch that over the PC games, and so, like, there's some smaller market for console gaming, and maybe Halo can take that over, but it's not a guarantee. One of the next disadvantages that Halo's looking at is they've kind of 343's got two strikes now with Halo 4 and the Master Chief Collection. Both of these were considered largely to be failures, at least compared to Bungie's Halo. Like, if Halo 4 were released as an independent title, weren't Halo just kind of the beginning of the series and whatever, like, people, yeah, sure, would have loved it. But in contrast, like, they were expecting more from Halo 4. Halo 4 didn't fail necessarily for the same reasons that the Master Chief failed. I actually think Halo 4's failure was a lot worse in terms of game design, because it failed due to competitive problems. It had so many problems with the competitive scene that it couldn't be a competitive esport. Like, one of the big things, loadouts, like coming in without a fair start, which can work for some games. Like, we've seen it work with Call of Duty with their customary loadouts at the start, and then, like, even things like the itemization in League of Legends, where you can, you know, build certain items throughout the game to kind of help you win there. It works some places, but it didn't work for Halo, and loadouts were not a successful thing in Halo 4. Also, the random ordinances like this was absolutely shit. For a competitive player to come in and to want to win based on these variables that they know and they can control and they can account for, now random fucking variables are getting tossed in. Oh, is it going to be a sniper or a bolt shot? I don't fucking know. It's part of the fun. No, it wasn't fun. Terrible idea. Absolute failure. Viewers don't want to see an element of chance in a competitive game. That removes the idea of, like, who's better. Oh, well, player A would have won if it weren't for that fucking ordnance spawn. No one wants to be arguing that. No one wants to argue those variables. They want to know who the best is, who played the best, and who deserved to win that. But the biggest thing that Halo 4 really lacked, like, in spite of all that, Halo 4 might have done well just in terms of, like a casually competitive game, but they didn't have competitive ranking systems. Like, all the Halos beforehand had these great ranking systems to, like, show you how good you were, and Halo 4 didn't come through with that. And so, like, it kind of polarizes things. You have this really weird middle ground now where you have the competitive scene, and then it's all casual below. So, like, the competitive scene is just those pro tournaments, like, who's still dedicated enough to Halo to show up to those and try to get good at Halo and win those. And then, like, just, it's all casual beneath that. And you can draw direct contrast lines to something like Halo 3, which had, like, very much like an amateur scene where these players who were getting into those 50 ranks were starting to challenge and be, like, just as good as pros in more casual settings. So they could at least take games off of pros. Maybe weren't as consistent, but, like, these players that are, like, packing out custom game lobbies and doing 1v1s and 4v4s on custom, like, Guardian, BR starts and all that. Halo 3 and Halo 2 had this element of an amateur scene, and Halo 4 really didn't, and that's largely attributed to the lack of just any competitive ranking system. You don't know how good people are besides just I guess their KD, or maybe, like, the really good ones go out and win tournaments. Besides that, like, oh, I went to a tournament. Cool, man. So Halo 4 really, really suffered from that. Then we take a look at the Master Chief Collection, which suffered for different reasons. Arguably more impactful reasons, I think, that the Master Chief Collection suffered because it didn't work for 3 fucking months after they released it. It just kind of absolutely flopped in that regard. And that turned so many people off to it. Like, the infrastructure failure that the Master Chief Collection went through was definitely more damaging than that of the Halo 4 competitive failure, but I don't think it's more damning. Like, I don't think, actually, that tells us as much of 343's ability to create a good game as a studio. More so is 343's ability to put out a game on a new console with under serious deadlines. And yeah, they fucked up, and we cannot just say, oh yeah, whatever, we forgive you for that, there were some strange factors there. Like, no, we definitely need a technically sound launch, and the fact that it was still broken as fuck 3 months after release is inexcusable. Absolutely, there are no excuses for that. But it does at least say that we did see better balance coming out from 343. Granted, they're working with Bungie's Halo, but they're still not being so set in their ways to tell the Halo community what it wants instead of listening to the Halo community and asking them what they want, that they can't pull that around, and it doesn't tell us that we may see some good coming out of their ability to balance Halo 5 in the right way. The bad news is now 343 cannot fuck up Halo 5's launch. There will be no recovering from that, no matter how much money or tournaments they throw at it. Like, the money's going to dry up. People won't watch if we have another season of, like, Halo esports that are plagued by disconnects, by things like DDoS and technical difficulties during pro matches. Nobody wants to see that. And then the big disadvantage there is that players don't trust Halo. Like, they want to love it, but they know that they can't let themselves trust that and then get let down again. It's that old saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And the whole community is very much behind that saying right now. They're very much adamant in saying, I don't want to be burnt by Halo 5 again. Like, I want to get hyped. This would be cool, but I can't with the Master Chief Collection flopping as hard as it is. The good news to that is that's not the hugest disadvantage there, just in the sense that if this goes well and the Halo 5 launch kind of goes off flawlessly, people are going to be reading Reddit and Facebook, and just word of mouth is going to travel for that. That's like, okay, yes, the game works. Yeah, dude, I played 25 games on launch night, and I climbed to Onyx. People are going to say, oh, shit, Onyx? Fuck, I'm already so far behind, I got to go out and buy this game. Like, if it works, people are going to buy that the next day, and the word will travel pretty fast on that. So let's segue into, like, what's good and what's working for 343 and Halo in these circumstances surrounding launch. So let's look at the advantages that they have. So we talked about the ranking system earlier. 343 now, obviously they failed with the ranking system in 4. They've learned from that mistake, and they're coming in to set a really, really good ranking system in Halo 5. They've brought in the same guy, I believe, that designed the League of Legends ranking system and the StarCraft ranking system, or he may have worked with them, or at least I know he's designed this very much similarly to where you have divisions that you climb through. And what's going to be great about this is it's going to give players a reason to play by themselves and to be the best outside of this competitive scene. It's going to create a lot more, like, amateur friction. It's also, I think, going to create a very more accurate depiction of who the best players are. Being, like, outside of just, like, being the 50, like, because that was one problem that the Halo 2 and 3 ranking system suffered. It's like, you got to your 50, right? And then from there, it was like there was this whole spectrum of who's great beyond that and who's, like, shit. Like, you would have pro players had their 50, right? Pro players that were just dominant in the game. Then you had, like, guys that were absolutely shit in 50s. Like, they got boosted, carried, or, like, sometimes even just players who weren't that good learned to play kind of a weird solo style of Halo where they could do okay themselves and climb to that 50 rank. But then, like, if they got matched up against a pro at that 50 level, who are, like, on paper supposed to be here, that huge discrepancy, they would just get bodied, absolutely wiped. And you had an entire area of just, like, not good 50s. You also had, like, some middle ground guys in those 50s that could maybe take a game or two off pros, maybe, like, weren't at that level of consistency to really kind of get into that pro level themselves, but could, like, mechanically deal with them and had some basic semblance of strategy. That would also, like, they'd wipe these guys, but they'd lose to the pros. Sometimes they'd win games. So, like, 50 really didn't tell you too much. It just kind of told you, like, okay, they can get to that highest level, but really the entire game was different and uncharted beyond 50. And that doesn't seem like it's going to happen again with this ranking system. That's actually something I'm very excited for, is we're going to have definitive numbers on, like, who is the best. We're going to have, that number one in pro ranking. So, like, you're not going to see people arguing over who the best pro player is, to the sense of, like, oh, Snipe Down's better mechanically, but Ogre has these better decisions and tactics, and he may be an overall more consistent player, so, like, it's hard to decide who the greatest is. No, we're going to have a fucking number. We're going to have the number one of, like, who is that best just overall player. And granted, that's only, like, in a solo sense, but that's still, you're going to still be able to contrast that to the team sense of, like, okay, well, Snipedown's the best because EG, CLG is taking second, so Ogre's not the best, but, like that's going to give us more to work with if then Ogre's the number one pro on the leaderboards, or if Snipedown's there. Like, it's going to be very much more clear-cut, and it's going to remove a lot of those arguments. It's going to give a lot for the journalists and the talkers of Halo to work with and to really inspect and tell, and that is a great thing. Another advantage, and one of the biggest ones in my opinion, is people are looking to support Halo. People want Halo 5 to do well. They want to have this great game come out. And examples of that I think you can see at every single level of people involved in Halo. So if you look at it from a sense of, like, the producers, the hosts and the sponsors of tournaments that want to put on Halo and yeah, maybe just make money off of it, maybe see it do well, I don't know, but there are people out there willing to support it and willing to pour money and resource and sponsorships into this competitive scene that is going to be much to Halo's benefit regardless of the intention. Then you take it, like, a step down to maybe, like, esports organizations. Like, you have big organizations like the ones we already see in Halo, CLG, Denial, EG, Team Liquid, Winter Fox, and like Cloud9. all guys that have these other esports organizations and things like League of Legends and Counter-Strike, like teams elsewhere, Call of Duty teams. I assume more are going to follow. This is totally beside the point, but I totally wouldn't be surprised if we saw organizations like TSM and Renegades from North America come in. They have Counter-Strike and League teams as well. We may see some teams from Europe step back in. Things like Fnatic. They had a Halo team. Probably like the worst possible time to have a Halo team. Like shit, they got in Reach and Halo 4, and their team just kind of flopped and never went anywhere. But we may see them step back in. They're making huge moves. They got great League of Legends and Counter-Strike teams that are like world-class competitors. So we may see them come in. Other European organizations, possibly like SK, NIP, and Navi, they may try to get their hat into this as well, especially with all the money that's going to be circulating early. But the good news is that we see like other dedicated esports organizations supporting that. Like to kind of bring it back into what we were talking about, we have support at the producer level, we have support at the like esports organization level, and now we're gonna I think we're gonna have a lot of support at the player level. Again, players want Halo to be a success, and 343 is giving these players the tools to succeed in supporting their game. They're saying, we're going to give you great Forge and great customization for things like machinima and ability to create content and great platforms upon which to spectate Halo. That they're giving the players the chance to really lift their game up, and I think the Halo community will respond very positively to that. I think that's going to be something very helpful for them, and they're helping us by helping themselves, in a sense, and we're helping them by helping ourselves. So it's a very synergetic system there. And there's a lot of support going on for Halo. Everybody wants to see this game do well, except maybe like the creators of Call of Duty or some shit. But if you take a look at something like Call of Duty, or again Destiny, we can see that the whole console shooter market's actually really, really undersaturated right now. Like Call of Duty's been declining since Black Ops, and Destiny doesn't even have a competitive fucking scene because it literally can't without custom games or a theater. You contrast that to Halo, like the infrastructure they're setting in place, the measurements they're taking to make sure that Halo is successful as an esport, like with a great theater platform to watch matches, with Forge to keep like fresh rotations of competitive maps and game types in. I cannot stress enough what a huge advantage that is if the community reciprocates, if those players then take that and work with it. And that's not guaranteed that they will. I'm just saying that 343 has made it a hell of a lot easier for them too. Just looking at this infrastructure and support, it's looking like Halo is going to be a success. Like all of these, I think, factor in, like even in spite of these disadvantages, I think we're seeing a projection for Halo 5 to do well, especially if you look at other factors in the esports. Like I said, Call of Duty is not only declining, but now they're moving over to a PlayStation partnership. Now Xbox is just, like, they seem to be in a position where they're just going to throw all of their, like, esports support at Halo. And again, that doesn't guarantee success. Like, take a look at, Titanfall. It's supposed to be this huge Xbox One launch title. People are getting hyped for it. They're saying, oh, Titanfall is going to be the shit. It's going to be this huge new esport. Because Xbox knew Call of Duty was declining and knew it wasn't doing as well. But they didn't have Halo to fall back on. So they're like, yeah, we'll make Titanfall. We'll make this super fucking great esport. Oh, Titanfall, everyone get hype. And like 2 months later, no one's fucking playing Titanfall anymore. No one gives a shit about Titanfall. It wasn't a bad game, but it just never took off. Like, even right now, Titanfall has like 100 viewers on Twitch TV. This is not, it's out of the limelight by far. So, throwing money obviously doesn't make it a success, but Microsoft is still doing it, and that's where 343's job comes in hot, by doing things like hiring pros to balance out their game and help them create this game, and recruiting someone talented to design this ranking system. Like, it's obvious that 343 is not just taking this and saying, oh, thanks, yeah, we'll, like, put on some extra tournaments or something. Glad you're our sponsor and our friend, Microsoft, like, great pal. Like, they're saying, okay, yes, give us this, and we're gonna fucking work with it. We're gonna do everything we can to make this a success. So they're not wasting that support in a sense. And if they're not wasting the support on a corporate level, the support that they're getting from Microsoft and maybe other sponsors to make Halo a good game, I don't think they're going to waste that support that we, the community, give them. And I think that'll grow as the notoriety of that grows. Like, as Halo is using that support well, only more support will come in for them. And I think that's a really telling factor, something we're going to see much to the benefit of Halo 5. When you add this all up, the disadvantages that all seem like they can be overcome as long as the game works at fucking launch at least, and then the advantages that it has over other shooters in the market, the support it's getting from Microsoft, and all of this points towards Halo looking like a top-tier esport. Sure, it'll still be second to things like League, Counter-Strike, Dota, but it's in a position to rip the console scene apart and just take that to the #1 level of being a great console esport. Again, I'm not saying that it's going to. I'm just saying it has the right framework. 343 has this golden opportunity to make Halo a commercial and competitive success and then set the framework for like a lasting dynasty with their own trilogy of Halo they're coming through. And maybe the HCS continuing on into the Halo 6 whenever they release that, setting a routine for competitions and viewership. It's just they're pitching this very slow, steady, and all they need to do is swing. And it looks like they're in position to hit it. Also, a perfect time to be a content creator, a journalist, aspiring professional player, or even like a game developer. If you're doing something like Forge Designs, like to create maps and other creative outlets like fun game types, we saw like Griffball or like several other 1,000 mini games, ranging from things like Duck Hunt and Jenga to Infection and Mongoose races. It's a good time to be in that position to benefit from Halo and simultaneously benefit Halo by being that machinima content creator, by being that journalist or that analyst or that someone who wants to be a coach or a pro in Halo. The biggest thing someone in that role can do right now to benefit themselves is start by benefiting the community. Halo has a very rich community, or at least it has had in the past, and I think, again, Halo 5 bringing in that infrastructure, bringing in the right tools to make this great game is going to be very beneficial to people in those roles. And one of the great things about this is I think if any community can take a dead game and bring it back to the top, that's going to be the Halo community. All these factors to me just look like Halo's got a great chance to return to the top. 343, again, they've got an easy home run coming down the plate at them, slow, steady. All they need to do is swing. And I think if they do, we're going to see the return of Halo as a giant in the competitive scene. Thank you.